Welcome to the AVETARS training video for the creation of a skilled capital student. So this video will be going through the step-by-step process of how to create a skilled capital record. So to begin with, you obviously need to make sure that you've already collected the student information, ensuring that you have their name, their date of birth, their unique student identifier, and other relevant fields before you actually go ahead and start creating the student record. Once you've collected that information, you then log into the AVETARS student management system, and then once you're logged in, you'll get a screen similar to this or your dashboard. So once you've done both these steps, to actually create a student record, you simply click Contracts, then select All. Upon selecting All, it will then bring up the Training Contracts page. Now, under the Training Contracts page, you'll notice there's this new Enroll New Skilled Capital Student button. Upon selecting this button, this will actually allow you to create a skilled capital record. So we're just going to be running through one scenario today because there are quite a few. So we're running through the scenario of creating a skilled capital record for a student that does not currently exist in AVETARS. For the other scenarios, such as a student already existing with AVETARS who is then undertaking a skilled capital qualification, for example, they're doing user choice and they now wish to do skilled capital, I refer you to the user manual to actually show you what needs to happen there. But to get in with, firstly enter in the student's details. Followed by their date of birth. Now it's important that the student does meet the eligibility criteria. For example, they can't be less than 15 years old. And then their student ID. So if it is a new student, meaning they actually don't have any existing records in AVETARS, they obviously won't have a student ID, so leave this field blank. You then need to follow it up with an email. And then finally a USI. So as I mentioned before, the USI is a mandatory field and you must have the student USI before you can go ahead and create the record. So once you put in all this information here, you hit the submit button. Now, providing there's no validation errors or incorrect values, it will then take you to this student details screen. So just simply work line by line, filling in the relevant information. So starting off with gender, and then their street address. Followed by postcode, and then their other details. So when it actually comes to the phone number and the mobile number, you don't actually have to enter in both. However, it's critical and mandatory that you actually enter in one of the values. So I'm just going to put in a mobile number. And just going to leave the mobile number field. So the next series of questions actually relates to the concessions and the loading amount. So we're just going to go question by question. So this first question does relate to disability, whether the student identifies themselves as having a disability. In this case, we're going to select yes. The second question relates to, are they of Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander origin? We're going to say no for this. Then just going down the page, we have, does the student identify as being youth at risk? We'll say yes for this scenario. And are they long-term unemployed? We'll go no. And whether or not they have a concession. So if the student has one of these three concession cards and they are eligible for a concession, so just select whichever one if relevant. The next field here relates to subcontracting RTOs. This is specifically for the subcontracting of foundation skills delivery. So if your organisation has an agreement with another RTO to deliver foundation skills delivery, then we'd like to know about that actual RTO in this field here. So it's just selected from the drop down. Now for today's case, we're actually going to leave that field blank. Now, one of the important fields is obviously knowing about what qualification they're going to be partaking in. So in this scenario, we're just going to do the certificate for disability. And then finally, it's just entering in the delivery mode. So select whatever delivery mode is relevant to that student. So once you provide all that information, and providing there are no errors, it will then take you to this screen. So as you can see up at the top here, the new skill capital contract has successfully been created. You get this screen here indicating that it has been created and approved, and just it gives you an overview of the actual student. So if you look at the left-hand tab here, the contract details, this is a lot of the information that you actually populated during the application or the enrollment phase rather. If you then go to this tab, it talks about the funding amounts actually being applied. I must stress all the information in this video is testing data, so the funding amounts and the student details and RTO details reflected on the screen do not actually reflect live data. This is purely for demonstration purposes. So if we look at the funding amounts, we've applied a base funding of $2,380. Seeing as they weren't an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, they didn't attract that loading. However, since they did identify as a person with a disability, they received that $500. Also the $500 for being youth at risk. So you can then see that gives us the individual student price. And then since the student was also eligible for a concession, you can see here the concession amount has also been added to the contract. So once you factor in both these things together, you see the total expected amount payable, the expected total payable rather, which is $4,470. Now, the payment screen gives you a step-by-step breakdown of what needs to be paid. Regarding the concession, we pay that upon the creation of the record. So as you can see here, the concession payment is already sitting here, ready for approval, ready to be paid into the RTO's nominated bank account. It then also, much like user choice, gives an overview of what's the remaining amount, how many units have been claimed, and what's the balance for that student. So that's the overview of a creation of a record. Something else you can also do is download the CSV file. By selecting this download CSV file, it would allow you to grab the details of this student for you then to put in your own student management system. This is intended so you don't actually have to double enter data into your own student management system. Now, once that record has been created, you can actually see the contract being all set up. If you go back under contract, select all, and then once that's loaded up, it'll give you a view of all your contracts. So that's just loaded up now. So if you scroll down, you can then see this is our training contract view, and the student Ada Lovelace, we have just created her. As you can see, the Cert 4 in disability, it has been marked as approved with the relevant student details. You can obviously go back to that original creation screen by just actually selecting on the student ID. As you can see here, this has all their relevant information if you wish to access it again. But just going back to that single view screen, it's important that once a student record is actually created, you then select this accept actions. So by accepting it, it frees up the money to, or frees up the student to start being recorded in AVETARS. So very, very important that once you've actually created the student record, you then go into the contracts view and then select accept. But as you can see, there are multiple, like all the student in records that you do will be displayed, so you don't have to do it one after another. You can wait till the end and do it all in one big go. Now, you will also see this confirm button here. So this confirm button relates to when the student actually starts their training, not the enrollment date, but the actual start date. So that is really when the training plan is signed. So when that event does occur, just put in your details here, as you can see. And then once you have put in that information, you'll notice that this action has changed from what was a confirm to now a complete. So the next thing you have to do is once the student has actually completed their training, you then put in the relevant dates for the date deemed competent and the date the qualification was issued. So that is a basic overview of the creation of a student. I will encourage you to look at the AVETARS Skill Capital User Guide for a step-by-step breakdown of what I've just described. It is very important though that you do note that enrolments do open up on the 23rd of February. They will be opening up at 8 o'clock and closing at 6 o'clock. So the way it's going to work is when enrolments actually open, you, the RTO, can go in and start enrolling as many students as you want up to the qualification limit. Now, on the first day, we'll be guaranteeing every single enrolment that you place up to the limit. So if let's say the qualification cap was 100 and you enroll 100 students, we will honour those hundreds. However, the important thing to note is after the first day, the qualification cap will be moving to a real-time counter, meaning that when the places are expended, there will be no more enrolments until we look at doing another round. I believe that's all the other relevant information. If you do have any questions, I do encourage you to email us at avatars@act.gov.au. The relevant details will be in a link. Equally, just give us a call. If there's anything else, we're more than happy to give you a hand. Thanks very much for your time. See ya.